As we approach Memorial Day weekend, it's time to pause and remember the true meaning of the holiday. Sure, it marks the unofficial kickoff to summer, a getaway weekend for many Americans. But at its roots, Memorial Day is so much deeper. It's one of the country's most poignant and meaningful holidays. It's a day for us to honor and remember the many service people, both men and women, who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. But as we remember the fallen, we should not forget those who defied the odds through grit, determination, scrappy resourcefulness, turning certain doom into odd-beating survival. That's what this book is all about. The Sailing of the Intrepid. This is a gripping true story of the USS Intrepid, which you may know today as that museum ship docked on New York City's Hudson River. But before it became a huge tourist attraction, the Intrepid was a proud, hardworking member of the Navy's Pacific Fleet during World War II, an aircraft carrier known as the Fighting Eye. But in 1944, it got hit by a Japanese torpedo in the Pacific Ocean, jamming its rudder so it could only sail in circles. So imagine that, 3,300 miles from its Pearl Harbor home, crippled, under attack. Well, the book tells the incredible story of problem solving under desperate conditions. The crew rigged a giant makeshift sail on the massive ship, and for those who've seen the Intrepid, it truly is massive. It allowed the Intrepid, the first aircraft carrier in history, to sail home to safety. What an incredible story, and it's co-written by my next guest, Montel Williams, who, of course, you may know from his legendary 17-year run hosting his Emmy Award-winning TV talk show. Williams, also a 22-year naval and Marine veteran. Look at him there. He's joining us now. Welcome to the show. And I want to start with thank you so much for your service.
Thank you.
I don't think many people realize that you spent 22 years serving the military.
My career spanned 22 years. I started off enlisted in the Marine Corps, went to the Naval Academy Prep School, graduated from the Naval Academy, got commissioned as a naval officer, then served for about another 9 years active duty. Then I served in TEMAC, then I went in the reserves, started the show, and got out.
Started the show. How did it influence the book and, of course, your life, that military time?
I was so proud of this because David Fisher reached out to me, actually, and said, Montel, you know anything about the Intrepid? And I said, yeah, man. I had been on the Intrepid probably 14 times, and I knew this story.
You've broadcasted your show from the Intrepid many times.
And I knew the story, but I didn't know that a lot of people didn't know the story. So when David reached out to me and said, I'd love to collaborate with you on this, and we really started digging in to tell a story of what is truly one of the most iconic ships in naval history.
I mean, again, when you drive by it, you can't help but stare at the Intrepid. In the book, you shared that the Intrepid, like we told our viewers, was struck by a Japanese tornado. This happened, torpedo, excuse me, not a tornado. In 1944, there were casualties, but then the surviving crew members made a sail on this massive aircraft carrier and then came back to Pearl Harbor.
And when you say made a sail, what people have to understand is that this was one of the most advanced warships of its time, almost 1,000 feet long, and they didn't have sails on the ship. So the crew had to get together. First off, they got hit by this torpedo, which rendered it like almost like a pinball, just was careening out of control within the middle of a battle group. And the captain was trying to make sure that this ship did not fall into the hands or fall prey to the rest of the Japanese Navy and Army. And they would have been so proud to be able to sink this thing, and he didn't want that to happen. So the crew got together. They went around the ship collecting all the canvas that they could find.
Wow.
So the crew made it almost like a contest. Who can get the most canvas? They brought it up to one room and one sailmaker, and the sailmaker's job on this ship was, believe it or not, for sewing body bags.
Wow.
Or sewing, you know, covers to rescue ships. They actually put together this 300-square-foot sail, affixed it on the front of the ship, not to actually be the propulsion, but to actually counterbalance the effects of the wind and the currents to allow it to sail straight 3,300 miles back to Hawaii.
And while they're under attack.
Correct. The Japanese were looking for this thing like crazy because this would have been the pride of the Japanese Navy to sink the Intrepid. You know, this, and they didn't find it because the crew got together. This is ingenuity. This is heroism. Yes, there were several deaths that took place. This ship had a hole in the back of it from the waterline all the way up to the flight deck. But they were able to control the trajectory of the ship enough to get it back to Pearl Harbor, where it went into port, had a makeshift rudder put on it, went up to San Francisco, went into dry dock, got repaired. Watch this. Goes back into battle, gets hit by one of the first kamikazes attack, gets hit by 2 kamikazes, goes back into San Francisco, gets refit, comes back in the battle, get hit by 2 more, goes back into San Francisco, goes back and helps finish the war and really helped project the American sea power the way it did to actually bring down the Japanese.
I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I drive by the Intrepid every day, and I'm along with many others don't know that story. Why tell it now?
Because I think, right now, when we're living in a time where we're living in a nation that's so divided, think about 3,000 young men from all over the country who came together to realize we are not going to let this thing fall in the hands of an enemy. And they came together. They had all different attitudes, different opinions, but they came together. They accomplished a task that, honestly, no other ship in the military ever did.
I was telling you during commercial, I started reading this book. It's so fascinating. It reads like a novel. It's so fast-paced. But tell me about the research. There is so much history in this book.
Oh, my goodness. That's one of the things that, David Fisher, who is my collaborator, one of the most prolific writers of our time right now. I think he did an incredible job. He said to me early on, we ought to hire some researchers. I said, no, we can do this. He said, no, Montel, we need to hire some researchers. So we hired researchers, and we dug into everything from biographies and from people's diaries to records in Washington, D.C. Ken Fisher, who wrote one of the forewords for the book, and the Fisher Foundation, the Fisher family, Zachary Fisher, literally, when he found out that this ship was getting ready to be mothballed and destroyed and gotten rid of and turned into scrap metal, he bought it, brought it to New York, talked to Mayor Koch and said, look, I want to turn this into a museum. Mayor Koch said, okay, let's do the West Side Highway. He said, I'll refurbish the whole area. We'll help you get this whole thing refurbished so that this could be, an iconic landmark for people to come visit. Over 1 million people a year come and visit the Intrepid right now.
People love the Intrepid.
Yes.
As you're digging into this research, was there anything that surprised you?
What surprised me the most was the fact that these guys had, you think about not giving up, these guys had an attitude they were not going to let the Japanese get the ship.
Even under attack?
Correct.
Incredible.
Correct. That's heroism beyond belief. And I'm so proud of the fact that we were able to do it, and you said it right. It reads like a novel, but at the same time, we give you a history lesson, because this was the 4th ship with the name Intrepid. Intrepid goes all the way back to the early 1800s, where one of the first Intrepids, which wasn't an aircraft carrier because there weren't aircraft carriers then, literally was a disguised ketch that went into Tripoli Harbor to sink the USS Philadelphia that had been taken over by pirates and was being used to block shipping channels there. We snuck in, sunk burned the Philadelphia down to its core, and these guys got out. And so that's the start of a legacy. And now the name Intrepid, which was retired, is now going to go back in, and there's going to become a new Intrepid. And that new Intrepid will be probably a destroyer.
I cannot wait to get into this book. Thank you so much for coming on. Really incredible.
Sure,
blew my mind. Montel Williams, thank you again.
You can get it anywhere you see a book, and it's everywhere.
And make sure you get it, because the reviews are excellent of this book. No, thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.